Hello, my name is Michael Newton, Technical Director for Castmaster Australia Proprietary Limited. Congratulations on your purchase. Used correctly, the Xcelerate will give you many years of casting and fishing pleasure.
But first, it is important you pay careful attention to the instructions enclosed in your Xcelerate pack or on the website. We are now going to cover the four main areas you will need to follow to gain the maximum benefit from your purchase. Firstly, you need to attach the Xcelerate to your rod.
It's important you follow these instructions explicitly. Secondly, how to pre-tension Xcelerate prior to casting, allowing for your rod's characteristics, the casting weights you'll be using, and your individual casting strength. Thirdly, loading the line onto your Xcelerate prior to casting. And finally, the casting action you will need to apply to get the best results from your Xcelerate.
Our first task is to fit the Castmaster Xcelerate to the rod you will be using. Remove the plastic strip from the underside of the unit, exposing the adhesive tape. Position the unit on the rod halfway between the reel and the first runner or guide. The arm must be pointing towards the rod tip. With firm pressure, push the unit onto the rod. Now place the two cobra head cable ties in the slots provided in the Xcelerate base. Ensure the coarse side of the tie is facing onto the rod. The shiny side must be facing away. Unlike standard cable ties, the cobra head tie requires you to pass the end of the cable through the front of the head, like so. Now wrap the cable around the rod. Draw up the excess cable tie hand tight by pulling the tie away from the head whilst holding the head firmly in position against the rod. The head should be positioned on the rod directly opposite the unit. Position the blue tensioning bar over the cable tie, sliding it down against the cable head. Hold the tension bar firmly against the rod and the cable head. Now grip the end of the tie with pliers and using strong pressure, pull directly away from the tensioning bar to lock the saddle in place. You will hear a clickety-click sound as the tie locks into place. Repeat the process with the second tie to complete the unit's attachment. Using a sharp knife and cutting away from yourself, trim both ties as close to the cable head as possible. In trimming each cable tie, ensure you have a smooth finish at the cable head.
With the unit secured to the saddle, it is now time to explain how to pre-tension the Xcelerate for your first casting session. You'll now need to spend a short time in a practice casting session to establish the setting that best suits your rod action, the casting weight, and the power you apply to your individual casting action. The initial reference point at which to start your adjustment is to set the adjuster to the second major increment line on the dial from the reel end. From this starting point, you may need to make adjustments forward or back. These should only be one or two minor increments on the dial at a time. Let's look at the rod action in various segments throughout the cast. When casting, we want the line release at the optimum point in the cast. If the line release is too early, the cast will gain too much height and will lack distance. In this case, you will need to increase the tension by winding the adjuster forward towards the runners. If the line release is too late, the trajectory of the cast will be flat and also lack distance. In this case, you will need to decrease the tension by winding the adjuster back towards the reel. The optimum release point in the cast is approximately 40 degrees. At this point, you will achieve your longest, most effective cast. It is important you always make small adjustments each time between casts. One or two minor graduations on the dial at any one time. Over-tensioning may cause the arm not to activate in the cast, and could result in a break-off. During your first casting session, minor tension adjustments, either backwards or forwards around the dial, will soon establish the correct setting required for your optimum cast.
Warning: to ensure the personal safety of others or any risk of property damage, all casting must take place over open water.
We fitted the Xcelerate to the rod. We've talked about the pre-tensioning that's required. We're now discussing how to load the line onto the Xcelerate prior to casting. To help eliminate line twist, we recommend you tie in an anti-twist or ball bearing swivel 1 metre from the casting weight or sinker. When using Xcelerate, you must have 1 metre of line between the rod tip and the sinker. This rig will ensure that requirement is met. The sinker must hang freely from the rod tip at all times to ensure the line is tensioned. Now the line is tensioned by the sinker, position the line on the left hand side of the arm. Grasp the line from slightly in front of the arm and wrap 4 times firmly in a clockwise direction around the stainless steel neck. Now draw off 150mm of line from the reel with the drag set firm. This will enable you to open the bail arm. At this stage, the line should be looped freely between the Xcelerate and the reel. You are now ready to cast. Should too much line spill from the reel when you open the bail arm, wind back the excess line and firmly lock the last wrap directly behind the rim of the spool.
We are now at the beach and I want to go back over the important points made earlier. I am casting with a 2-ounce sinker and the tension adjuster has been set to the second major increment on the dial. The arm of the Xcelerate is pulled back towards the reel as far as it will go.
Notice I'm holding the rod at 45 degrees, the line under tension from the sinker. I'm now ready to load the line onto the Xcelerate. Remember, 4 tight clockwise wraps are wound around the steel neck of the arm. Now I pull a small amount of line from the reel with the drag set firm. This allows me to open the bail arm. I'm holding the rod directly behind me at shoulder height. parallel with the sand. The line is still under tension from the sinker. Facing the direction I intend to cast, I accelerate the rod a full 180 degrees through the vertical plane directly over my shoulder. Don't stop or pause the rod at any point throughout the forward cast. Accelerate smoothly right through the full 180 degrees. Xcelerate will release the line automatically at the same point in the casting stroke every time.
It is critical that your rod travel through an arc of 180 degrees and a casting plane that is vertical and over your shoulder. Do not use any other casting technique. Pendulum casts or any variation of a swing cast will result in a break-off. The weight must hang freely and be stationary, directly under the rod tip at the start of the cast, and must not deviate from the plane of the rod throughout the whole cast. To reiterate, the casting arc is a full 180 degrees and the plane through which both the rod and weight travels is vertical and over the casting shoulder.
The casting weight must hang freely 1 metre under the rod tip and be stationary. Do not bounce the weight or allow the weight to touch the ground. It is important that your upper hand pushes the rod upwards into the casting arc, as shown in these freeze frames, whilst the lower hand pulls the rod back towards the body. You may need to modify your casting action. As stated earlier, pendulum, swing and off the ground casts must not be used with your Castmaster Xcelerate. After casting, move the arm fully forward towards the guide or runner. In this position, the device will not foul the line whilst you are rewinding or fighting a fish. As you become more familiar with the Xcelerate, the points set out today will become second nature. You'll apply those in your fishing, consequently cast greater distances, have greater casting pleasure and catch more fish. Thank you for choosing Xcelerate, and remember, Xcelerate puts you where the fish are.